Hi everybody, welcome back to another Instagram Live from the Lightbridge Light Lab. Great you all here, great you all joining. Today we're going to do something a little bit different than we usually do, so bear with us. What we're going to do today is we're really going to talk about the emotional impact of light and how we actually can use the knowledge from cognitive psychology, from our research that we do in the house, plus obviously all the amazing giants on those shoulders we're standing on with information that's really all out there, compressed, put down into a package where I hope you all can be inspired by it. You can use it for your own work. So this is not really talking about products today, just for you to be warned. It's really about how we actually can use light, how we can make something better with this. Again, I'm going to be here on my phone, trying to follow what you're saying. I just have to make sure that I know how to get onto the live chat here. And then we're off to go. There we go. Excellent. So here we go. What we're going to talk today about is fundamental research. So it's not about light and how we can set it up and what we can technically do with it. Actually, we're going to be talking about the most important thing about it. It's how light actually affects us and how we can use that information. Because let's never forget, it's never about what we're doing on set. It's about the people that are afterwards watching it, that we want to obviously create a really deep, impactful meaning with this. But before we start this off, I'd like to actually do something here. I'd like to talk about something that's beyond the status quo, because obviously for us this is really important at Lightbridge. Just think about our products. This is far beyond what's on the market now that we're doing. And it's so basic, it's so simple, it's fundamental. It's fundamental research. So we're first going to talk a little bit about beyond the status quo. And something really cool happened last year. Last year, an Austrian physicist got rewarded with the Nobel Prize for actually light. So me being a total physics, I won't say any bad words about myself, but basically I'm not so good enough about it to really explain it. So I hope I just can condense it down into something that makes sense. So light, right? It basically consists of photons, right? So you've got the chance actually in whatever process to take these photons and to split them up, entangle them and split them up and set them into different directions. So look at the test that Anton Zeilinger did here. So what you see over here is you've got two islands. On each island, you've got one of those telescopes to actually look up into the stars. But what he did is he sent one photon from one island over to the next, over 100 kilometers, 108 kilometers, which is a crazy distance. So what he did was one photon went over to the other island and the other photon stayed on the other island. And now look what's happened. These photons have nothing to do with each other anymore. Two particles of light, two photons of light on one part and the other. You looked at one photon on the one island and it turned positive. You know what happened on the other side? The other photon decided, oops, this one's positive, I'm going to go positive too. So just think about two dices. I give you a dice, you go on the other side of the world, I roll my dice, I have a 3, and the other side, without us having any communication, oh, mine's 3 too now. So that means the entire way we see time and space actually in the world of light does not exist. Actually has nothing to do with it. We don't understand it. The only thing we understand is we've got our senses. We can take in light, we can see light, we can perceive light, but it doesn't really have anything to do with what's happening out there in a world that we're just trying to start to comprehend. So this all comes from basic fundamental research. And the reason I'm showing you this is because Anton Zeilinger here came up with an amazing phrase, I think, that really fit well for the Lightbridge. What he says is that really big breakthroughs always come from basic research. We may never be at a point where we say we're professionals, we know what we're doing, we don't need to look at the basics again. I think actually the better we get in our job, the more important it is to look back and to say what's actually really happening here, how this is all really starting. So this is what we're going to be doing here today in the Instagram Live. And actually this is what the Lightbridge is about. So just for me to let you know what we're doing here in the back end. I know you see the products, you're using them on set, but actually to get to these products, a big thing's happening in the background. So what we do at the Lightbridge is we really want to create an awareness for the emotional impact of light. Really important. What worth is light with a light meter if you look at the light and you don't have a feeling? So we really try to do everything possible to understand light better and bring it into connection with humans. We do this obviously by research, by exchanging with people, and by sharing our knowledge obviously with you guys out there, with all other people. We get infos back. So from there we really learn and see how we can go on from there. And we believe actually that these great ideas that you guys bring to us, that we have and we put out into the world, will even inspire even bigger ideas. So it's not about having something and saying, oh my God, this is mine, I won't share it. I think it's really important to share all this knowledge, to go out there, to see what comes back to us, because if you put out energy, some energy is going to come back. So I think this is really important for us to do it like this. And because at the end of the day, each tool has an innovative visionary thought behind it. Only good tools, of course, do that. If you try to copy something, I like this, I can make this cheaper, it's never going to be from this essence, from this really beautiful thing like a hammer. You take it in your hand, you think, oh my God, this feels really good compared to a cheap hammer you got somewhere else. So that's really the important part about it. But again today, let's focus on light. Let's talk about light and its basics. So it's 2 a.m. over here in Cuba. You see that? It's dark out. But you know what? The person living up here probably isn't sleeping very well. So what's happening? There's daylight here. There's daylight bulbs. And this daylight, as we go outside into the sun, as in the nighttime, like I'm right now sitting in a lot of daylight 5K6, just it's obviously all night over here, but it produces hormones within me. It produces serotonin. So what does daylight serotonin do? It wakes us up, makes us excited, makes us go on in the day and go on. So that's what's obviously happening up here too during the nighttime too. Our body does not calm down because it feels, oh, it's day, I have to be active, I need to do something, hormones, serotonin. There's a downside to this. If women are exposed for a longer period of time to too much daylight at nighttime because of artificial light sources, there's an increased 50% chance of breast cancer, because obviously the whole rhythm of the woman just gets totally out of whack because, you know, you don't calm down, you don't wake up as we usually do during the day. So we have our rhythms, and this gets blocked by the rhythm. So as you can see, light has a big emotional impact on us and how we actually react to it. At nighttime, what we want to do, and this light here in the front, the warm light, we want to have tungsten. We want to have daylight. We want to have warm light producing melatonin. That's another hormone that produces, that calms us out during the evening. So in the evening, if we turn on tungsten lights, we turn off all the horrible fluorescent tubes and stuff and LED lights that look cool, it helps our body to calm down, to relax. Like, you know, Stone Age time, cave, there was a fire on. It calms us down, brings us to sleep, and relaxes us. So that's something that's really important. I'm just trying to read a question. Also, light produces hormones, stress to wake you up. Yes, of course, same thing too. That's the reason there are actually lights that you can have next to your bed that bring on that daylight just to wake you up. And that's the reason all the phones are now shutting off at nighttime, right? They go into a warm light, exactly for that reason too. Daylight is exactly the opposite. Actually, there's a statistic out there. If you're in the hospital and you're in the south side of a hospital, you get released statistically 2 days earlier because the amount of daylight and sunlight you're getting onto your skin, right? We eat daylight. We eat it like vitamin D through our skins. That's something that's really important. So as well can see over here, light has a big emotional impact on us humans. And obviously, I'm not the first person seeing that or not the first person trying to use this. There have been masters long before us doing this. Here, William Turner. You know what he did? He really wanted to capture the feeling of light. So what he did is, before a storm came up, he went to the boats, that was 18-something, and he bound himself to the mast of the ship and sailed out into the storm, bound there in the waves, shaking exactly like this picture gives you the feeling. He wanted to physically experience the light. He wanted to know how this light felt like, to be able to paint it, to reproduce it. And actually, you know, 100 years later or 200 years later, Lou Reed actually, musician, I hope that you know, otherwise do check him out. He, at some point in his life, decided he wanted to go more into photography. He did something similar. In Ireland, he bound himself to a mast on the shore, and when the storm came up, he started to take photos, also to feel the impact of light and what it does with us and try to capture it. Now, the question comes up, how can we use this, right? How do we use this for our films? How can we use this for the work that we have to do? So, again, I'd like to show you a painter that's Paul Cézanne. You know, the beginning of Impressionism. He was the first type of painters that said, we're going to leave the portrait painting, we're going to go outside, we have to paint an impression of what we do. This is super important, right? So if you look at here, these mountains, always the same mountain, but he painted it in different time to get a different impression of it. And do you see how different this is from the lush greens to a feeling of night? I don't know if it's night, but it's blue. It gives us the feeling of that, right? We'll get into this later. Or during a certain time of day, maybe it's like even autumn and this seems like spring, but so different feelings come out just looking at the same thing, right? So that's definitely something to check out in our Paul Cézanne's paintings. But of course, we can do the same thing for film. Just think about it. It says in the script, or somebody, the producer tells you, the director tells you, yeah, we're going to shoot this by a roadside and there are going to be some trees there and there's a person walking by. That's all. So the question is, how should it feel? That's the next question to ask, right? How should it feel? Why do we want to do it? Now look at that. That's the same street with the same row of trees in different times of day. Just look at the different feeling that's happening over here. The early morning sky coming up, the fog in the morning. Maybe this is more like an evening light. Also here, the mist is still here. We really feel the sun coming up. Now the sun is starting to really explode in the sky. Such a different feeling that's happening from there. So just from a simple sentence of some trees and a road, just by deciding at what time will we shoot it, we do create a different, feeling. So it's not about it's 3 a.m. in the morning or it's 8 a.m. in the morning. I will shoot it at noontime. I think that time of day is so important for us. And again, it comes back to when we talk about the hormones, right? So it comes back to the time, how should we feel in it? What feelings do we want to recreate? But we'll get into the recreation of those emotions later on in today's episode. So I'd like to show you a video. It's actually a really cool video. This is from a very famous light artist, Olaf Eliasson. And what he did is, this is in, I think it's in Copenhagen, it's definitely in Denmark, on the top of a museum. They didn't have enough money to finish it. So they asked him, can you do an art installation on top? And he said, sure, let's just walk around the whole museum. And what I'll do is, around the walkway, I'll put glass, but I'll put it into different colors. So it's the same time of day. The camera is physically walking through it, and just see the emotional impact of this just by changing the color of the surroundings. So here you can see what it actually looks like. You can walk around and you see there's different colors here, right? Okay, camera goes in. Starting the green. Here comes the yellow. Suddenly something warm starts to come, right? There's more oranger colors. See, it feels like a totally different time of day. And here come the red tones. Feels totally different, doesn't it? Obviously, it's always up to us to decide what it feels like, and we can't really control what the audience feels. It's not important. As long as we feel something, we know something will pass on to the audience. Comes the violet. If the quality on your Instagram feed isn't that good, do check it out on YouTube. It's a YouTube video. Olaf Eliasson. Boom. Doesn't this feel like light almost, night? But here the light's already coming in. You still know there's sun here. And here's the daytime outside. It's awesome, isn't it? So, using colors to tell emotions or to tell stories, right? Again, that's nothing new. Even like one of my most famous, most favorite movies, Nosferatu, shot by William Murnau, German expressionism movies. At those times they were using colors. They color dyed the black and white movies. Obviously it was about symbols, about those night, about daytime, but also just trying to create emotions, right? How should it feel like? To give it an extra feeling. So we use those symbols and colors sometimes to recreate something. We've got to be careful with symbols because they can't become dogmatic, because it doesn't mean our audience will understand these symbols. It has to be something that is lived out of the story, about the consequence of the pictures we're showing, how these images come about and how the colors will come together. But it's a cool thing to see. Okay, so now we looked at, different feelings of light. We got impressions of, wow, all these images just came up to us and what they actually can do with us. Let's really look and deep dive into what's actually happening here. So let's go into cognitive psychology. So obviously, as we know, we see our world that's surrounding us through our eyes. Obviously, we've got more senses that help us, give us a feeling of the world that's surrounding us. But at the end of the day, is our eyes. And actually eyes see whatever it is, and then it gets processed by the brain to actually be able to use this. So we got to be careful with this, because that means our surrounding may be what it is. Just think about the photons. We don't really understand what the world's out there. We just understand it by the way that we see it. So we're limited by our senses and our sensories that we have within ourselves to see something. So here's a good example by Josef Albers. You see over here colors, right? You see yellow, you see violet, you see reds, you see some kind of a green, you see a brighter green, and then you look in the center. You see the violets, you see the reds, you see the greens. Don't they look different? Here, this green to this green, this violet to this violet, this blue to this blue. It seems different. You know what? Inside are actually the same colors. The only reason they look different is because of the surrounding colors. So what does this mean? This actually means we do not perceive color as color. We perceive the color we see by seeing it in contrast to the surrounding colors. So isn't that awesome when you think about using this on set? It's not about dialing in on your favorite LED light the color. It isn't. It's about the color that surrounds that color. So all of a sudden it's about how can we put colors together to create the color we want. Doesn't this, in mind exploding, doesn't this mean it is so awesome? Because now we don't only talk about one color we like, we're seeing it relationship to second color. So I think this is just really great examples of seeing how colors work. Obviously, Josef Albers wasn't the only one. One of my favorite painters, Mark Rothko, he actually is a cool guy. He made his paintings really, very abstract pieces of work, and they were kind of big. This is actually a small picture, and he was actually one of the first artists to say, I'm going to set the light in a room. I'm going to say you can only show my pictures under certain light circumstances to really get the feeling of the light. And when you stand in front of those red hues and blue hues, it has such a profound feeling on it. These colors so come out. And then when you go close, you see how the trick works. The trick is actually here, I don't know if you can see this now in Instagram as well, there's a separation. There's actually three colors. There's a red here, a very dark red, almost feels brown, and then there's a bright red. What does that mean? Because this color is darker than this one, this feels brighter, so it feels more exploding on you. So isn't that again cool to see how color separation, three colors actually are creating one here. So this also is a big thing to think about when you're setting colors, when you're lighting a set, what actually that means in terms of how we perceive it. Now there's an amazing artist, another favorite one of mine, James Turrell. James Turrell paints with light. So all his installations, all his works he does is actually always about light. Now this one here is called a sky space. Actually what you see up here is a small house, and it's got a cutout, and you see the sky out on the top. And you sit down below, this is actually like you would see it, looking up into the sky. This is here what happens. Now what does he do? You sit there and you enjoy a beautiful day, you enjoy the blue sky, and then what he does is he changes the color of the room. And you know what's going to happen? This color of the sky is going to change. You're looking up into a real sky, and you're thinking, oh my God, the sky isn't blue. And it's true. We only perceive the sky as blue because of the surrounding colors. That doesn't mean it's blue. It's only because we perceive it of the surrounding things. So that really tells us everything we're shooting, everything we're creating with light to then show the audience is all bound to how will they perceive what we see. Is it going to be the same feeling, the same emotion? And that's what we have to focus on. We have to be laser focused on that. So it's just a great artist, just to show him again. And a famous quote from him is, we live within this reality we create, and we're quite unaware of how we create this reality. And see, that's our jobs as professionals. A professional means he or she knows what we're doing and is able to recreate it and understand how the audience will perceive it. And we have to learn these tools to become very precise in what we do. So let's look at another example here. There's a technique in psychology, I think it came up in the 60s, I'm not sure, and it's called circades. Basically it means I'm looking at you through this lens from the iPad, and there would be a laser scanner attached. And wherever I'm looking, that laser scanner, it's like a tracker, is tracking my eyes, and it can see where it's looking. So what you see up here is you see a face, and you see what's actually happening. We're trying to look at this face, but look how our eyes are moving. Isn't that insane? We're looking at a face, but this is actually what we're doing. Here we think we're just looking at a face, but this is actually our eye movement. And what we can see here, just to dive deeper into this, to understand how we perceive things that surround us, because why do we do it? At the end of the day, we're animals, right? We're always trying to figure out, are we safe? Can we trust this person? Do I like this person? Is this a good place for me to be? Do I want to walk away from this person? So the first thing we look at, if we look at this, are the eyes. See, it's the darkest. We look the most here. That's the first place we look. We always look into the eyes of people. Do we like this person? We have to look into the eyes. We've got sunglasses on. If you don't see the eyes, you're not sure about the person. That's the reason, for example, in Godfather, Gordon Willis did this amazing top light where you would not see the eyes. So Marlon Brando just became this monster figure, right? Because we could not see the eyes. So we can really use this information, understanding how we're looking. Then we look at the mouth, and then we start to look around. And then we make the decision to say, oh, that's a nice face. She's got beautiful eyes. I might trust this person. Maybe I'll buy an apple from her or whatever. So this is basically what we do. But let's break this down even a step further, because we have to understand how we perceive things, why we perceive them, what we do with them. So let's look at the path of abstraction. We have a face. We see the circades, what's actually happening. Now look at this face. We still say, oh, it's a face, right? Because why? We look at the eyes, we look at the mouth, we check the surrounding. It's a very similar process to what we see in the circades over here. So we still understand, yes, this is a face. You know what's even more abstract than this? Writing a face. This we know because of cultural barriers. If somebody doesn't speak English, they have no idea what this means. If somebody, for example, from Austria, does not speak English, they look at this and they read Fake. What does that mean? So they don't even understand the meaning with it. So we actually have to learn what this actually means. This here we don't have to. This face we don't have to. As babies we start to understand what's happening, so we actually can understand it as a face. But let's look at an amazing modern photography. Eyes, mouth, walking around, it's a face. We see her blue eyes, we see a very beautiful face, and we can actually identify it as a face. We actually maybe have a feeling with this, just looking at her, understanding what we do. But at the end of the day, when we look at this, the first thing we say is, oh, it's a face. It's an object. It's an objective. We say it's a face. That's what it is, right? So it's the same thing here too. We have a face. We look at the eyes, look at the mouth. Oh, it's a face. It's a smiley. It's a face. Oh, yeah, we could write as a face too. So looking at this triangle, and we're going to be looking at a lot of this today, the bottom line here of this triangle is everything that's objective. We look at something, we decide, oh, it's a face, oh, it's a table, oh, it's a flower, oh, it's Instagram Live, whatever it is, right? So this is the bottom line over here. But now, look at this face, and now let's look at the next face. Oh, eyes, mouth, it's a face. But something else is happening here, isn't it? We don't say it's a face. We look, is she scared? What is she looking at? What's happening here? Do you see the difference? This light is coming from a direction. That person is looking at the direction of the light. That actually suddenly means, oh, it's not just about a face anymore. We are adding another layer onto this with light. Let's go a step further. Yeah, it's a face, isn't it? But something's weird here. Oh, look at the shadows in that face. Hard time. Do we really see the eyes? Don't we see the eyes? That's just a weird figure, possibly in the woods. Do we like this person? I'm not that sure about it. So we're adding a layer. Although it's daylight, although it's beautiful day in the woods, there's something weird here. We cannot see the eyes. There's a weird shadow on the face. We're not sure about this person if we would approach him alone in the woods, right? Take it a step further. Yeah, eyes could be, mouth, not sure. Yeah, but it's still a human, right? We still see it's a human. But the feeling is a completely different one, right? So we take this face and we add the surrounding to it, and we suddenly have a feeling. Something suddenly happened there, right? But to break it down into a line again, we have a face. In this case, it was an object, right? And we have a surroundings. So in this triangle over here, what's happening down here is we're saying, yes, face, yes, nighttime, yes, magic hour, yes, it's later, early in the day. So we are actually adding something onto this, right? So we understand the face now. We have to talk about the surroundings, because if you enter a room and it's pitch black and you've never been in it, you're going to be very careful how you walk, right? So if there's no light there, we don't know what to do. But even if there is light there, something's happening here. So there is this amazing psychologists, Eleanor and James Gibson, and they were a lot about cognitive psychology. And what they looked into is to say, well, if we light something, just because we put light there, it doesn't mean we really understand what's going on. So they're test that they did is they made like this checkerboards and they put glass at the front. And then they obviously put checkerboards that goes down. So this animal is looking at this and saying, oops, this is not safe. I'm not walking on this. Baby, standing there, sitting there thinking, I don't think this is safe, but I like that my fingers can feel something. So let me just touch it and see if it really goes down deeper. Oh, there's a glass here. Oh, maybe I can actually walk here. So we are suddenly, if we can't see something, we don't trust our eyes, even if it's totally evenly and bright and lit, we start to use other sensories that we have within ourselves to play around, to work around, to see how our surrounding works. So the feeling of being safe, the feeling of trusting an environment. Does our body feel safer? Are we safe here? Is the community safe that we're taking into this room or into this place? Is it safe, right? That suddenly plays totally into the game. And as we talked about just a minute ago, is that we started to use, the baby started to use the fingers. The same thing is if you look at this night sky in the forest, right? Well, do we want to really walk here? I'm not sure. Maybe I look at this and I really hear the wolves howling or things. And I had this amazing experience, right? So I have this house in the countryside, a small little farmhouse. And when it got evening and it got dark and it was still like after summer, I was thinking I still want to do my walks, right? And the time of day didn't fit anymore, so it was getting dark. And I said, I don't care, I'll still do my walk. So I started next to the house on the asphalt street, everything's good. And then I started to walk into the forest and suddenly I got scared. I've been living there for 7 years. I know there is nothing there, and still I got scared. And I thought, what's happening? I don't need to see where I'm walking because I know this place so well. Why do I get scared? And then I noticed, oh, other sensories. I suddenly started to listen to the cracks in the forest. I started listening to hear things. What's in the forest? I can't see it, but I hear something. There must be an animal there. So suddenly we get afraid just because we're not able to see anything anymore. We're trying to rely on other senses that in this case, of course, are tricking us because these days no more bears in Austria. So whatever, or wolves. So there is no problem about this. Not for the environment. We need bears and wolves. But for little Jakob walking in the forest, it's still a different story. But anyways, for us it means we are using our senses if one sense falls out, which means something happens if we don't see something, which is something really important we can use when doing films, right? Just look at this. Even if it's brightly lit and there's a forest there, we still see something up here. And we think, is this a face? I don't know. But I see maybe a hand. Maybe this is a hoodie, because we know what a hoodie feels and looks like, right? So maybe there's a person. Is he coming towards us? Is that person running away? What's happening? This automatically starts to create something within us. And see what happened automatically when I was telling the story of saying, yeah, I was walking in the park and suddenly this dark figure appeared. And I don't know if that person was walking towards me or away from me, but something was off. What happened here? I'm slowly starting to make up my own story, right? Something's happening. I'm getting an emotion looking at this because I don't have certain information. So leaving information away also creates something. You know what's really cool? Because actually, we know this is a figure, object. We know the surrounding. It's a park, no problem. But still, right in the middle, we push up a line and we start to make up a story. Because this may be an object. This is a dark surrounding where we can't see everything. It's empty here. Suddenly in the middle, we push up with an emotion. Boom. Something's happening here. A story is starting. Emotions are happening, always connected with a story, right? So that means on the top of this, we have the objectives down below. We understand something. By the top of the triangle, we talk about feeling. This is non-objective. This is a story that is happening in our minds up here. So this is something really amazing. And I must say, one of the most powerful tools that we have in filmmaking. It's what happens up here. That's what's actually movies. In German we say Kopfkino, which means a movie in your head. That's what's happening in between. If we show everything, we sit back and we think, okay. But as soon as we create something like this picture I showed you, the movie starts. So there was this amazing Russian director who first, in the 30s, I think had the idea to say, well, something's happening if I'm juxtaposing pictures, images to each other. And that's called connotation. I see one image, I cut it, I put another image next to it, we put them together, we create a story. So he made this video, very good. He, of course, made a film at the time, taking an actor, famous actor at the time, always with the same facial expression. He used the same image over and over again, but edited different objects and images before and after. So he took this bowl of soup, And then you took the face. Maybe I'm hungry. Maybe I see this. It's called the Kuleshov effect. Oh, there's a dead girl here. Oof. How does this feel now with the face? Same face, don't forget it. Another Kuleshov effect. There's a beautiful woman on the couch. That suddenly feels very different when you have an associations to the person. Again, let's look at it again. The Kuleshov effect. We are now editing images together. Now in comics, this is called a gutter. Actually, the story happens in between two images. Here you see, now you die, he comes with an axe statue, the guy at the front, oh no, 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 no. Suddenly you see the skyline here and here, wah! So just put this image away. Just ignore the first part of the image. You just see a skyline and you see, wah! This can mean a lot, right? Just see the first image. Now you're going to die. Okay, maybe he's going to run away. Maybe he gets away. We don't know. But combining these two images together suddenly means, well, I guess that person felt the axe more than he should have, right? So that's something that happens there, the gutter. The image and the story happens in our mind and it happens right in between here. So this is where we always have to aim for when we're lighting. Where's the story happening? It's happening in between the edges, in between images. So there's a bad news here. This really great effect will not happen in some circumstances. What's happening is there's a cultural barrier. The cultural barrier actually means is that we're trying to create an emotion, but we're not. We're hitting with our emotions here. We're saying we're not going to let it go further. Now, let me give you an example of what that actually is. So, real famous TV show, Friends. Is it day? Is it night? What is it for a time of day? I think it's Let's Show the Faces Day, right? Okay, it's daylight. We can see it back here. Actually, back there is the window. So there's something bright back there. Must be daylight. Well, okay, let's look at nighttime. Ooh, this is nighttime. Well, because the window's dark, right? The faces are still wearing bright town. So how much emotion actually can happen there? None. It will happen because you watch the faces, of course. There's always something going on. Otherwise, the whole thing wouldn't work. But in our little niche thing that we're talking about lighting, we're not using light to create emotions. We're creating light just to make something blah. That's it. That's all that's really happening here. So we're not really using our tool actually to shape a feeling that we want to create. So this is where the barrier happens. And we got to break through it. Of course, we all have our cultural barriers. Just think about we're shooting a thriller. Oh, I know how thrillers to look. There's a lot of night, there's a lot of contrast. So again, a cultural barrier, because we're not actually looking at the story. We're looking at our cultural barrier. What do people expect from us? How should this look? Now, we all need to get paid. We all need to be there for people that actually want to get what they want to get. But at the same time, we're trying to get through this cultural barrier. Same problem with moonlight, right? This should be moonlight. Really, is that what moon is? I don't know. It's blue, so it's moonlight. Again, a cultural barrier. We're not thinking about the story. But actually, we want to do is we want to break through this. We want to create the strongest emotion we can because we want to help storytelling. We want to help create something over here. So we want to create it with light, right? That's the reason we're here. So let's look at our circades again for a second. Remember the top part? We already looked at this. We have a face, yes, sure. We got our circades, we got the eyes, we got the mouth, we understand it. Now look at the bottom picture. Yeah, we have eyes, we got a mouth, all done. See what's happening? See how a lot of times our eyes had to look to understand this is a face? And look how little the eye had to look to understand this is a face. Although there's contrast, although there's shadow, we had to look less. So why is this? Because here, light was used to emphasize the parts of the face that we have to see to feel comfortable. So we took a bland lighting, we see everything. So we still see everything, but actually we see it better. That's what our eyes need to see to understand this is a face works much better here than here. So if we use light in the right way, we actually can enhance emotions, we actually can help the eye to see better. And just think about the Friends show. If you want to see a face smiling, want to see it laugh, if you put some contrast into it, if you understand how to shape and modulate the face, we actually have a chance to help with lighting. So I'd like to show you some examples now of amazing portraits, to stay with faces. Obviously, we have a lot of examples in films where this works too. We've got beautiful, amazing movies shot in ways that really enhance emotions work, right? So in this case, just to stick with the photos, because we've been doing this, let's have a look at this. It's not about day or night anymore, right? It's just about a feeling. It's just about the impact of that it's having. Look at this. Is it day? Is it night? Who cares? There's a feeling. There's something happening here. Same here too. It's a front-lit face, but there's no eye light. The way it's shaping around, and you see a little bit of the surroundings. It doesn't matter if it's day or night. It matters what's feeling. It matters the impact of light that comes out. Same one here. So how does this work? How do we go from the objective to the non-objective to the feeling? How do we break these barriers? So I'd like to talk about a few things here. I've got 4 points for you, and then the 4th point, I've got some tools for you to use to help yourself when you're lighting, when you're shooting, to break through these barriers, to help you understand the ways or possibilities to be able to do this. And definitely there's more out there, but this is our Instagram Live for 1 hour. So here we go. So the most important about all is the story. That's what matters the most. The most thing is about why are we telling the story. It's not about a girl walking down the street. It's not about that. It's about why are we telling a girl walking down the street. We need to analyze what we're talking about to such a base level that we can decide, is it morning? Do we need fog? Do we need the sun already coming up? That's the why. That's the why of the faces we looked at. Why are we showing it like this? We have to tell a story. We need to force ourselves to tell the story. So that's always the most important thing, is to ask the most easiest, simplest question in the world is the most hardest to answer. Why? Why are we doing this? Why do I want to do this? Why is this so good for what we're doing? It is a tough question to ask and a tough question to get an answer to, even if it seems so simple. Second thing is what we looked at with the gutter, with Kuleshov effect, less is more. The less you try to show, the more place you leave for the audience, which is really important because Kopfkino, it happens up here in the head, is really all about how we create the world, the feeling we want to have in the head. Think about the person that we maybe saw in the park, at nighttime. It's the same thing. What happened there? It's all in our head. We think this happened. This is a much stronger emotion. Actually, that's the reason dreams are so strong. This is a great story, quickly, Billy Wilder's story. So he woke up one day in the morning and said, oh my God, I got the most incredible story. I need to write this down. Where's my pen? I don't have it. He forgot it. So he thinks, okay, I'm smarter next time. If I ever wake up again with the best idea for a movie in the world, I'm going to write it down and I'm going to fall asleep again. So he put the pen there, he put a pad there, and really he woke up. Oh, fantastic, I can write it down. He wrote it down and went back to sleep. Next day he woke up and said, oh my God, I have to see what I wrote down here. This is the most incredible movie I'm ever going to shoot in my life. Looked at the notepad and it says, girl meets boy. So what happened here was really simple. He had such a strong emotion because of his story he had within himself. He wrote it down objectively. Yeah, maybe cute, maybe not, who knows. But the emotion we create with it, the less we can do with showing our images, the more space we leave for people in the head. So that's really important. Now here's a tough one. We're on set, it's early in the morning, we want to get something done. We have this amazing idea to make it work. We got all this gear that's coming out of the trucks. Everybody's nervous we're going to finish it on time. Does it really matter? Let's be honest. Let's make sure to keep our egos intact. Maybe less is more. Maybe not doing everything that we thought and dreamed about in that shot is actually going to create a better shot. We got to take care of our egos on set and always think we are the first audience. We're the first people that are going to see what our audience is going to see. How is the audience going to feel when they see this? This is important, not what we do on set. That nobody will notice unless you do BTS and Instagram and whatever, but that doesn't matter. We get paid for the end result. We get paid for that, what people feel when they watch it, when the producer wants to book you again. How did they feel when they watched this? How did the audience feel when they watched it? So that's really important. So to help you create these emotions, help to work on the why and how to work through that, we got a few tools I want to talk about. Really simple, but again, something to think about. Number one is emotional memory. That's actually a tool that actors and actresses use. It's all about how did we feel in a certain state and why did we feel this way in a certain state? And are we able to recreate the state, to recreate the emotion? So if we think about we're walking down the street and it just feels amazing. Check yourself, take out your phone, Why does this look amazing? Do I see something that really looks, not the cool shot. It's about how did we feel? Is there something that we just can take a photo, take a snapshot? Oh my God, this made me feel amazing. And the next time you're on set and you think, I need to create this feeling, you know, oh my God, I was walking down the street, I saw this amazing light coming through the shadow, whatever it is. But to recreate this feeling is something that's really going to help you to be very precise in the emotions you had. But always take care. Just because you have the emotion doesn't mean the audience is going to have the emotion. But to tell you the truth, it doesn't matter. If you have an emotion, there's definitely a chance that your audience is going to have an emotion, which is the most important part. It's not about saying you have to be this, you have to be that. As long as people have impact, they feel something strong, you've won. So that's what it's all about. The other thing is, here it gets a little bit tricky, is we see something. Let's say you're looking through the lens and you're saying, do I like this? What's happening all around me, all the stuff that's going on, is that something that's really important? The trick is called the inner feedback loop. So how does this work? We always think we look at something and we say, what don't we like? Maybe it's this light, maybe it's this over here, maybe it's that. So we're always trying to go from your eye to our brain. What you got to do is, you got to stop this. What you got to do is, you got to say, what do I see? Let it go down into your stomach. How does it feel? Does this feel good for me? Does this feel right? Take the moment of silence. Maybe it doesn't feel right. Why doesn't it feel right? I maybe should try this. Then it goes up to the brain. Then find a technical solution. But always let the time to sink in. Why don't we like it? What's the feeling? Is the feeling right? And that's the only thing that matters. And it's going to make you a chance to say, you see something, oh my God, this looks amazing, let's shoot over here. Change of plans. Just because you let chance have a feeling, this feeling is more precise what we're trying to tell than what we had originally planned. So always the precision comes from the emotion we're trying to do. And then comes the final thing is, you need to focus on one thing. It is impossible when you're creating something to say, I'm trying to do 3 different things at a time. Don't. Less is more. Focus on one thing. What's the way we want to tell this image? I know it's scary because that means you have no options. If you fail, you fail. But if you win, you're really going to win. So here's the thing. Let's look at an example. Again, my favorite artist of the day, Kazimir Malevich, Russian, a painter. And he came up with this art term called suprematism, the supremacy of emotion. He tried to reduce painting down to pure emotion, just with lines and images and stuff, right? So I know you're thinking, Jacob, what does this have to do anything what I'm doing? So let's look at the next image. William Eggleston, again, my most favorite photographer. What you see over here is, okay, Jacob, what are you trying to show me? There's some red here, there's some colors here, what's going on? Yeah, I know. Let's go back to Malevich. Look at the lines going in the direction. Look at some counter lines. Look how the yellow's picking up. Look how suddenly there's a little bit of blue over here that's doing something. Let's go back to this image. Oh, there's a part of red here. There's some blue shadows over here. There's a line up here. So what was Eggleston doing? He was concentrating on composition. He was concentrating on creating compositional lines that he liked. He liked this line with this line. He liked the red spot. So it comes down to understanding what are you focusing on, what's interesting for you. And I think it brings us to the most important question of the day is this: where do you look? At the end of the day, that's the only thing that's important. You're trying to create something, we're trying to try to help you create something. At the end of the day, you got to decide, where do you look? What interests you? What excites you? What brings great emotions within you? And that's something we have to recreate. Thank you so much for listening today. I want to say thank you at the end to my, again, most famous and most beloved photographer, Tina Signes-Couture-Hult. All the portraits you've seen in the last images are made by her. She's a Hasselblad Award winner, an amazing artist on his own. So it takes amazing artists to make into amazing artists. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining. I haven't seen any questions come up today, so we're ending this session today like this. Next up again, we'll send out a questionnaire to answer the questions of what you've been having. Feel free to let us know what we should be talking about in the next Insta Live. Thank you so much. Take care and stay safe and stay healthy. Goodbye.